Welcome to episode 9 of Stories with Shomik. It's crazy to think that we've been able to convince 9 people to come spend some time with me. But here we are. Today's guest has a very, very interesting story. Juliana is the founder of Balloon, a sparkling water brand based out of Toronto. She's also one of the best marketers in the business. There's a couple of reasons I invited her here. One, we love to see companies getting started in the six. Two, I actually met Juliana for the first time thanks to Twitter during the pandemic when she used to organize these virtual trivia and games nights to keep us all sane, which I thought was very, very cool. As if you know me even a little bit, I'm big on community, and it was cool that there were people sort of taking the lead, and Juliana was one of them. And three, she writes the most honest reflections of life as an entrepreneur that I have seen in a long, long time. Incredible writer. She talks about everything, warts and all. It's realistic, day to day, weekly progress. And whatever I know of her, while Balloon is still pretty young, it's only a matter of time before Balloon is everywhere. All this to say, welcome to the show, Juliana.
Wow, that is the nicest intro I've ever had from anyone. Thank you, Shomik.
It's all true. Well, thank you for being here on the show. I know you have a lot going on, so just wanted to understand before we get into all of the details. This is something that I find very fascinating. You're an American living in Canada. What brought you here? The trend is usually the other way around. Canadians want to go away to the US.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll find after the election lots of people will be wanting to come here from America. But yeah, like that is the number one question I get asked. Like Canadians are sort of side eyeing you, like, what are you doing here? In a nice way, of course, because Canadians are nice. So, short answer, I met a really nice Canadian boy when I was in Boston, and he was there to get his degree. And once he was finished with his PhD program, which took forever, we had a very healthy conversation about whether we wanted to stay in Boston or if we wanted to move back to Toronto, where his friends and family are. And he batted his eyelashes and made a good case for it, and we decided we would give it a shot. And this is 5 years in now, so haven't ran away yet.
This is how we fight reverse immigration. Is we just send all of our people to the US and then convince everyone to move back. What's the origin story of Balloon? Because I was going through your LinkedIn. You have a very stacked resume. You're obviously on a ton of experience in marketing. How do you go from that deciding you're going to take on the behemoths in the CPG space?
Yeah, I think if you look through my resume, you probably think, this person has lived like 9 lives in marketing. I have
Yeah.
so many startups I've worked at. I think I'm at 12 or 13 now, probably. And then you won't see anything about CPG or fizzy drinks, or, it kind of looks like it's out of nowhere. It is not out of nowhere. So the one thing about living in New England before I moved to Toronto is that there was so much variety of sparkling water there. If anyone's familiar with that area, like the East Coast of the States, like Polar Seltzer is a dominating force in all the grocery stores, and they're just wizards in flavor. They do all these limited edition seasonal drops that everyone that is into sparkling water is obsessed with. It's also home to like all these regional brands called Nixie, or there's Waterloo, there's what other, so like Prickly, there's like all these innovations and flavors going on, Ora Bora across the States. And then I came here and all these drinks that I was crushing like 3 or 4 cans of per day were just gone. It was like a seltzer wasteland, and I was so upset. For a while, I kind of just let it bum me out. It's like not a career path that is aligned with the fizzy water. It's just my passion as a person who likes to drink fun things. And it's really been awesome to see the space really explode. It used to be you only had, let's say, LaCroix or like bubbly or AHA, but now there's like
Right.
more proliferation of different kinds of brands that are regionally associated, which is awesome. And I will say the one thing about my background, if you looked at LinkedIn, is there were a couple of software companies that I marketed for where the target audience was e-commerce founders. And that's really maybe the
Interesting.
catalyst is like, okay, lots of people like fizzy water. That doesn't mean all of them are going to go out and make their own brand.
Yeah.
But I think what made it possible in my head is that I started to get to know beverage and food founders that had come through with an idea down to production, gotten into stores, like are telling their stories on panels. And it was all very inspirational, but possible because it's really tough to think of your everyday person doing something like this. But like the more people
Yeah.
share their stories on LinkedIn, for example, the way that I'm starting to do now, the more it seems like, oh, they took this path and they worked it out somehow. And whereas before it was all success stories, it felt like now I'm starting to see inklings of not failures, because nothing's really a failure, but like
Hmm.
challenges or
Yeah.
opportunities or like the behind the scenes of making decisions. And so I think a really important thing that's coming out of social media lately, at least if you follow the right people, is that people are sharing exactly how they got to where they are. And what's really nice is a lot of them aren't these multi-million-dollar brands yet. They're still 1 year, 2 year, 3 years in. And so you kind of see what choices they're making, what decisions they're making, what they're building as they're doing it. And that way you get a lot more detail and nuance. And you can actually comment and get replies back from these people too. So it's like, it seems more accessible now. And
Yeah.
so I think like one, fizzy water brand fanatic, two, started to have an e-commerce background where I had founders in my network. Three, it seems possible because people are telling you that they're doing it and they're not like celebrities necessarily or MBA holders even.
Let me tell you this about the MBA holders. I have an MBA that has that is it's definitely good marketing for the program. I actually get into this discussion with a few friends where my argument is, if anything, the MBA makes you more risk averse than you were before, because there's
You have
just
a
like
lot of debt to pay off.
yeah, so much debt. But also, it's just like it plays into, that's kind of the people that you hang out with. You're seeing people growing in the traditional business lines, and it just so yeah, all this to say, like, the MBA is it's great. I had a great time. I definitely cherish everything I learned from it, but that's not always necessarily the most entrepreneurial program if someone wants to start. But I do agree with you. Like, I think I always say this, that the best things in my life have happened because I slid into someone's DMs and just asked, and it is definitely one of the best ways to go about building it. Why is it called Balloon?
So kind of a happy coincidence slash accident slash I'm a copywriter by trade. So at first I just wanted to paint the vibe of the drink. And so when I was thinking, even before I had formulas or flavors in mind, I just wanted to come up with a name. I don't know why I decided the name was first, but I just decided that was the way I was going to do it. So it's like thinking to myself, all right, bubbles are floaty, they're light, they're fun, they're, it's a party. If you have the right flavors, like it kind of feels like a celebration. And so I came up with that concept of like what embodies all these things. It's a balloon. And then I also wanted to own an emoji the same way Triple Whale owns the whale emoji in
Mm,
software. So I was like, what is an
nice.
emoji that I can own? So balloon has a very easy recognizable emoji. So sneaky thing there.
That.
And then when I was in the R&D process and the flavors were kind of not tasting as much as I wanted them to, and my husband said, why don't we try adding some sugar? And then all of a sudden we had this burst of flavor, or a pop of flavor, as we like to say. And so like
Hmm.
balloon pop really worked with that. And so didn't
Nice.
really plan for that to happen, but is very cool because it says on the cans, every can that you pick up and drink, it says a pop of flavor.
Love that.
Because I love wordplay.
I spent some time on the Balloon website, and the tone is like, one, I love the transparency in everything you've written. The humor is fantastic. Like, the why is shipping expensive, the fact that you put blame Canada, it got me to laugh. And for those who know, they'll get a laugh out of it. But if you don't, it's a South Park reference. Like, it was, I saw it and I was like, oh, that is very, very well done. But yeah, how did you go? Like, how do you decide that this is sort of the tone you want for your brand to be?
It's just my tone. That's me. That's
I love that.
can't be anything else. It's funny because I've done copywriting for other brands and trying not to be
Mhm.
myself in the copywriting is the challenge. But because this is my brand, it's me. That's my head.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you've decided, okay, it's a wasteland. I got to take things in my own hands. How does one go about finding people who can make this. In my head, it's a bit of a Breaking Bad scenario where people are testing in their backyard and then something explodes. But yeah, no, curious to know how that works.
So yeah, actually you're pretty spot on with my approach. At first I tried to make it in my kitchen with like a soda stream and some flavor drops from a library of flavors that I ordered from, and I was messing around with agave and simple syrup and stuff. But I rapidly realized after messing around a bit that I had no idea what the next step from messing around would be. Like I was like, okay, so I've got something here and then question mark and then it's canned. So I didn't know what to do next, and it kind of weighed me down for a few weeks where I just sort of felt paralyzed and like I don't know what people are supposed to do next. But then I realized there are these people called food and beverage scientists, and there's also research and development labs. So I think how I ended up to where I am is I Googled or either asked a few founders like how people make products in the food and beverage space in Ontario.
Mhm.
One thing that popped up was so George Brown, which is a community college, I believe, or a regular college, has a R&D arm called First. It's like FIRS, all capitals, and then T lowercase because they're fancy, I guess. And so
Funky, cool.
yeah, so you can give money and then they will take all the flavors that you want to make and make them a reality. So what's really nice is you just say, I want mango green apple fruit punch, and they'll say, okay, what's your concept of a mango, or describe what you mean by green apple, or do you have any samples or examples that you can provide? And like what's funny about my flavors is the point of picking them in the first place is you can't usually find them. So I was like, I'm making these because I can't really find them. So I can't really give you an example of it because it doesn't really exist, but I did my best. And so it's just really funny to think about the description of a fruit because it's so subjective. And depending on where you've
Mm,
grown up, a mango can be completely different. So that
true.
was like the main challenge. But like the fun part also is just trying to nail down my concept of these things versus what the food scientists were coming up with. And just going into the lab to do the sample tastings was just really fun because they'd give you blinded ones. So they'd say like, here's,
Mm,
5 A, and then you'd have to whatever, and you say, oh, I like this, but I like this better, or can we combine these or less of that? And so it's sort of a collaborative process over time. But you get 3 tastings with the amount of money you give them. So I was sort of sweating by the end of round 2 that we were not going to nail the mango because that was the toughest one. But yeah, I think I'm really happy with all 3. I obviously have my own preferences for what I like, but what's nice about launching with 3 is that people tend to find at least one that they're really excited about.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just ordered mine a couple of hours ago,
Yeah,
and
I'm excited for you to try it.
I'm super excited because mango is my favorite fruit, and I grew up in India where arguably we have the best mangoes in the world. So when I saw mango, I was like, yeah, no, I'm definitely
Oh my
excited
gosh,
to
now
try
I'm nervous about
it.
your
No, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I have no doubt about it. That's very interesting. So how long was this whole process from testing to okay, we're ready to put these in cans and put them out for the world?
Yeah, so I started out with this notebook, and I think this
Love
was like
that.
fall about a year, like 2 falls ago. And I started
Hmm.
just writing down ideas, and then I started messing around in my kitchen, and then I did the R&D process, and it took like almost a whole year of between R&D, can design and labeling, packaging, trademarking. What else did I do? There's like a lot of steps you have to go through, making sure I had everything in place in terms of like nutrition facts and like making sure I wasn't doing anything illegal. And then I launched the pre-order campaign. I want to say I sent out emails about it in like October, and then I produced the first batch in December, and that was 2023. And then I've been
Okay.
online selling for almost this whole year. So
Amazing.
like 6 months into really having it live and orderable across Canada, and then I just expanded to US online sales like a week or 2 ago. So yeah, like it feels like a
It's
long time,
amazing.
but then it doesn't because it hasn't really been live that long. And that's I think the tough part is like having worked on it this long, it kind of feels like I should be further along, but then again, it's just started. So it's like a
Yeah,
weird
that's
time meld warp.
and also you have a day job and 2 kids.
Yes, also
Uh,
that.
So I don't think pace is the problem. I think it's more of expectation management for you, because I
Hmm.
think you're doing really well, given this isn't just your sole focus. So yeah, maybe don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, I have the typical overachiever mentality of like, oh, what can I do next? What can I do next? And I don't really pause. But, sometimes I try to remind myself, like, this was just an idea and now it's a thing you can drink. And, like, that's already pretty awesome. And it's in one convenience store, which I can go visit it and it's next to the LaCroix. And that's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. That is listen. That's prime shelf space. That's very very cool.
Yeah.
I actually learned pretty recently about shelf space, and I never
Well,
gave it any thought whatsoever. But like recently, I'm I go down these uh, holes where I'm just like, okay, how does this work? And then it's 3 hours later, and I was like, wow, I learned a lot about how grocery stores operate. Had no idea,
oh, yeah.
and
There's like all
it's
these golden pathways to where you need to position yourself and what shelf and what area of the shelf you're in and how close to the handle you are. And
yeah,
if you can be in the grab and go fridge and I think there's some stores where you have to pay like $20,000 just to get shelf space. That's like almost all my savings for this project. Yeah.
that's wow. So how walk us through your process in landing the first in-store space, I guess.
So that was a bit of a cheat just because my husband's really good friend growing up's family owns the store. So my husband, Andrew, was like, hey, Ryan, like my wife is doing this sparkling water brand. And Ryan's like, cool, can you send a bunch of cases over? Here's some money. And that was the end of it. There's no contract, there's
Love
no
that.
negotiations, there's no stocking fees. It's just literally like my drinks in our car being
That's
delivered to
amazing.
the door. So it was
The,
I don't count it really as, it's a win, but it's not like I hustled really for it. I don't know. It's weird.
I
Right.
feel like you're hustling enough, and the wins are look, a win's a win,
Yeah.
and that's at the end of the day. That just goes back to that point about how important the network is, and having a strong network just makes the process a little bit easier.
Yeah. And
Well, a bit less cumbersome. I wouldn't say easier, but maybe less difficult.
for sure. Yeah. And I think it set me up to be unpleasantly surprised because it was so easy. Brian's like, send us some seltzers and great. But now I've been
But Metro isn't that
Netflix is
flexible.
not knocking down my door now. Yeah, so I've been trying to pound the pavement in my neighborhood to drop off samples at different like coffee shops and breweries and things, and like it's just been tougher than I expected to get traction. So there's one
Hmm.
brewery that I said, oh, they have a to-go fridge that they sell sparkling water in conjunction with their obviously alcoholic beer. And they also
Hmm.
have non-alcoholic drinks on their menu, and I'm there all the time. So I said, oh, this would make total sense. But they wanted something a little more run of the mill flavor wise. So they said no. And then there's a bagel shop I'm at like every Sunday, and I'm friends with the owner. And so I thought that would be like a natural fit, but she just didn't take the bait, I guess. And then I dropped off samples at my local cafe and didn't hear back for weeks, and so I just got the regional manager's email. So I'm gonna follow up, but it's just been, yeah, there's no like instant yes. I think I have to be
Yeah.
super persistent, probably annoy people a bunch before they take an action or say yes.
Yeah.
I'm not privy to what the decision making process is behind the scenes, so maybe I'm just
For
going about
sure.
it the wrong way. But I can see why people pay distributors to do this for them because it's a lot of manual, you
For
know,
sure.
getting in front of people, telling the story, following up. Maybe there's other ways I could be doing it. I think email might be my next route, is just putting a paper trail to it instead of just dropping off a box and hoping someone actually drinks it or follows up with me about it.
Totally. Totally. Makes sense. And I always joke about it that marketers and salespeople were born enemies. I've always been on the sales side. But it sounds like you need a salesperson. And would this is just like out of academic curiosity, would you be open to having an intern who could come sort of do that for you?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I feel like that's, and I say this because for my sales team, we recently hired. Well, when I say my sales team business, it's to be clear. So we actually hired a few like just out of undergrad, just hungry, and will pick up the phone, make 50, 60 calls a day, and sort of increase our footprint in some parts of the country where we had a lot of white space. And typically, they're hungry, they want to prove themselves, and are willing to sort of I know you're willing to do it, but like just from a time management perspective, it might be worth running a pilot. Worth a shot.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind outsourcing some of the grunt work. That'd be great.
You mentioned about some stores talking about preferring run of the mill flavors. What exactly does that mean?
I think they mean lemon or lime or orange or grapefruit, like your citrus fruits, like nothing that people aren't super familiar with already.
But everyone's making that.
Yeah, I know. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
you can get that anywhere. Don't you want something a
Yeah.
little bit special? But I will say they were carrying something that was like way the other direction. Like it was almost a cocktail kind of sparkling water. And so I think they just wanted to go the other direction to just very simple. So I guess I can't blame them, but at the same time, it seems pretty short-sighted not to. And I
Yeah.
I went
They'll
back.
eventually regret it. They all will.
They'll all regret it.
They'll all
No,
regret it.
I mean, I ended up going back after they said no initially, just to say, hey, if you want to take it on consignment to see if it sells, I'm fine with that. And they did say, come back when you don't have your toddler with you, because he was pitching a fit. So I will try again. I just need to get the pep and the energy back up to try a third time. It's kind of like,
For
how many
sure.
months do you want to take?
Yeah, makes sense. And if you need me to just go to this cafe and say, oh, I wish there were balloons. And some
Oh, I
water,"
should hire
that'd be-
plants to come in. Yeah, just have some
Yes.
people every now and then just kind of mutter, I wish this is a balloon.
Yeah.
That'd
Yeah.
be amazing. I like that. It's like
That's
for a
basically what Red Bull did in the
Yeah.
early days.
I love that idea.
There you go. Like I'm almost trying to provide value. No, but it's honestly worth a shot, and it's organic. No one needs to know anything about it.
No one needs to see me slipping 20s under the table.
Yeah. You don't even have to do that to me. I'm just happy you're here on the show. I'm
Wow.
more than happy to go around and say it to every single cafe and bakery around me. Cool. That is very, very cool. And you've been doing this for a year plus. What has been the thing that has surprised you about being an entrepreneur?
I would just say, how long everything takes compared to how long you think it's going to take. Just like getting boxes to ship my products out in took months. Trademarking, you file the trademark, it might not get approved for another year, up to 2 years in some cases. There's like this, no one tells you this, there's no playbook, but if you talk to people enough, you can figure out what the order of operations is for something. And it's always like 5 or 7 steps before you get to the thing you thought was the next step. So for example, I'm looking at trying to get into retail chains. And I assumed you would just get a distributor who then gets you into retail chains. But I talked to someone who has been working with Nestle for like 11 years and knows what he's talking about. And he said, no. Okay, so first you've got to get your packaging ready for retail. So like the boxes that people are going to buy a 4-pack of, for example, or if you're going to sell a 6-pack, like make sure you know what that looks like. And then go direct to small stores. So like sort of what I've been doing with my local businesses, but like be better at it, I guess. So get into a few stores, start getting sales to be able to tell the story that there's demand for your product, and then show those sales to a distributor who will then get you into the big chains.
Wow.
So I have like 4 to 5 things I need to do there before I get to the actual like outcome that I want. And that's assuming everything goes smoothly with every step. So, and it's funny because I had assumed, so I'm going to do my first trade show in the fall, and I have a booth at the CHFA now trade show. And that's super exciting.
So what is the CHFA?
So Canadian Health Food Association. So they do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really awesome. They have so many amazing beverage brands, food brands, like home products, beauty. It's just really such a fun time. It's like Disneyland for people who like snacks and products. But so I thought that I would wait until September when I'm at my booth, because then the people who go to these things are either retailers, distributors. Some of them
Mm.
are like press for the beverage space, or some of them are like social media influencers. So it's like, okay, great. So I'll just like sit back, wait until September, have my booth, make the connections there, and then get started with all the stuff. But this guy's like, no, no, you need to do the packaging and the sales now, so that when all the distributors and retailers are there, you have something to
Right.
tell them about how it's going. And so now I'm a little
Hmm.
bit like, okay, so I have some of July and all of August, and that's about it to get that done. So sort of like low key gonna email my designer probably today or tomorrow and say, can you make me some boxes for retail? Because they realize I needed that, and knowing that it's gonna probably take a while to get those boxes back, too.
Hmm.
So yeah, it just, there's so much more involvement and so much more kind of, I don't know, it's like checkers kind of. You're just like taking all
Yeah.
these moves until you get to the end of it.
Yeah. Wow. Learned something new today. Very,
Yep.
very interesting. Okay, tell me about your experience when you got your first batch of drinks. You looked at it, it was real, it was packaged. What was that like?
That's surreal, so the process is you get your ingredients sent to your co-packer, and then your co-packer will mix everything together, but you're there to make sure that it tastes okay, because they don't know what it's supposed to taste like. Obviously, weren't involved in the research and development process. And then they carbonate it for a few days, and then they can it. So I kind of was there for every step of the process, but like
Okay.
really standing there and watching the guy feed the cans into the machine was like super cool. And then you're done, you've got like this stack, like a pallet stack of flavors. So they kind of do one flavor at a time, because I have three. It was like, okay, we're gonna do, I think we did green apple first maybe, and then fruit punch, and then maybe mango. So it's like three separate times where I had to go in to help the mixing and just make sure everything came out the right way. But then, yeah, you've got this massive stack of stuff that is almost done in my basement. So batch one is like almost finished selling, which is great because I'm making batch two
That's
this.
amazing.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy to crack open a can of your stuff and drink it for the first time. It was kind of crazy to go to the convenience store and buy. I actually insisted on buying one. The cashier's like, I feel weird charging you for your own product, but I said I have having that credit card line item that's like you
Yeah,
bought
it's an iconic moment.
that's really cool. So like the whole experience, of course. But it's funny because it never really feels real. It still kind of feels like I'm playing around, like it's like a little pet project. Like it's not a real. I don't know if it'll ever. I don't know what it'll take. Like if I'm in a Target, maybe. But I would argue most founders probably wouldn't keep going if they felt like satisfied with anything. I feel
For
like we
sure.
all kind of just get to the next step and the next step and the next, and it's always like, how far can I take this? And so I like, that's my theory anyway, because that's the way I am. And so, okay, cool, I've got a product, but like, now what? Like, what can I do next?
Yeah, no, that's honestly that's amazing. I find like I've just been on the software side of things for so long that it's just cool to see people making physical things. It's just so much more real. With software, you can fix it while you launch, but this is different. It needs to be right before it goes out into the world, which is very, very cool to see.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
since you mentioned it's your pet project, I know you also have a full time job and you have two kids. Like how do you compartmentalize that? This is the amount of time a week I'm going to focus on balloon versus everything else.
So I have to have my kid time. Obviously, I have my
Of
day
course.
job time, and then I have a choice basically every evening because the kids go down around 8:39. And it's like, all right, I usually am up until midnight. So what do I do with my precious 3 hours? And if I'm really drained that day, the answer is like watch some trash television. But I am mindful that if I do that every night, nothing will ever get done anywhere else. And so it's a mix of like maybe doing emails for an hour for the business, or like tackling something on Shopify, or like working
Hmm.
on some sort of next step in terms of packaging or design. And then I'll go watch TV. Or if I'm really feeling motivated, I'll spend all 3 hours on the business. But I don't
It's amazing.
have extra time really to like I kind of have to have it in that slot. And if the kids are with their grandparents, then I'll spend like maybe an afternoon on it if I'm feeling motivated. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's up to me to keep it going. And as long as I feel energized by what I'm doing, it's not a chore. I think one thing that's been really great about the LinkedIn posts is that it keeps me accountable because people are reading. And so if I don't have anything to
Yeah.
say, it's like, okay, what have I done this week? And it kind of forces me to look back at what I've done too from an analytical mindset. So, for example, I think I'd written about how June was like a brand awareness test. Like I was giving the product away in order to get people to try it and then hopefully get more sales out of it. And so I was like, okay, like how did that actually do? And I was only thinking about how did it actually do in the lens of how am I going to explain how it did to the people on LinkedIn. So just it's been really good for getting me out of anything where I'm stuck because it's like I want to go to the next step. I want to talk about it and I want to explain what I'm thinking as I do it. And so that's kind of kept me at a more steady pace than I think maybe even like 4 to 5 months ago, where I was kind of like, I don't know what to do next, or like not quite sure that I'm equipped to handle whatever the next step is. And now I'm having a lot of more conversations with people who've seen my posts and want to either
Right.
help or give advice. So that's been really great.
That's amazing. And yeah, no, I have to say, I really enjoy reading your posts because, like, one, I learn a lot more about uh, seltzer water than I like. I actually probably drink maybe two bubblies a day, if not more, which I'm now going to replace with balloon.
Yeah.
And it's been very interesting seeing your journey and just like how transparent you are by saying, hey, this is not converted the way it I you expected it to, which is totally like because I feel like online it's getting better, but there's still a sense of I made $20 million in
Yeah.
6 months doing well. You probably committed fraud. That's the most logical reason. And if you're selling a course, having made 20 million in 6 months, you don't need to sell a course. Just keep doing what you're doing and
Right.
keep making 20 mil every 6 months. But I think it's more realistic, and it's a story of the brand at the end of the day. It's not just about balloon. It's about you. It's the whole story on how you made your way through this journey, and as you continue to grow the business. If you had to pick a mascot for balloon, who would it be, and why?
So thank God you asked me this question a little in advance so I could think about it because honestly, I still right now was like clowns. That's the only thing I can think of is class, scary clowns. I would not want the mascot to be a clown. I think would be really cool because one thing that's really compelling to me from a brand perspective is the concept of coolers, like how cans and coolers are like just so refreshing and like seem so appealing, especially in the summer, which is peak sparkling water season. So I think
Mhm.
cooler, I think like penguin. I think a penguin could be really cool. I think there might be already penguin mascots out there. I'd have to do a search, but I really like the concept of like a cool penguin who's like very chill, literally, just like the cans would be. It doesn't
Nice.
really align with balloon, the concept of a balloon, but it's more
Well, the penguin could
lifestyle.
hold a balloon.
Yeah, penguin can hold a balloon, sure. I mean, penguins can't fly, so maybe it would need some
There you
flotation,
go.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how the penguin flies with the balloon.
for sure.
Just takes a sip of the mango balloon and off they go.
I love that.
Very cool. Yeah, when I figured I should let you know about that question in advance, just
Thank you. I didn't
because
want my answer to be terrifying.
because like when you said, "Oh, I'm thinking clowns," my mind instantly went to the
Yeah.
clown from It, and I was like, "Yeah, no, no, that's
It's so weird because clowns didn't used to be scary. Like in my childhood, they were funny and like you wanted to be around them as a kid. But I don't know, like something around like the 90s or thousands, they became like was there
yeah,
some serial killer who dressed up like a clown or something? Like I don't know how that shifted in perception, but all of a sudden it was like clowns are scary.
yeah." I honestly don't know because like growing up, even for me, it was like clowns are whatever, they're fun, goofy. But there were people in like people I went to maybe kindergarten with who used to be terrified of clowns even then. And
Oh, okay.
so I don't know, it's probably very polarizing. And then of course, once they turned into serial killers, that
Oh yeah, the whole serial
ruined
thing I'm sure didn't help.
just ruined the crown branding forever.
True.
Okay, all right. But well, maybe one day they'll be cool again. I don't know if they were ever cool, but maybe one day they'll be fun and goofy again. And okay, here's something that I like to ask a lot of guests. What is your go-to hype song? You obviously have a lot going on, and sometimes you just need a little musical boost to get into the zone. And
Yeah.
yeah, what track is that for you?
It's not going to be anything anyone maybe knows, but are you familiar with like the Oculus VR set?
Yes.
Yeah, so you know the game Beat Saber?
Yep. Yep.
So like for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, you put on this headset and there's like blocks coming at your face and you've got two like laser swords in your hands and you got to chop the blocks in time with music. And so there's this one track that's like a K-pop song and it's like the chorus like there's like Japanese in it and then the chorus is like basically saying like I'm never gonna give up, you can't bring me down, I'm like a boss basically. And it's like so cheesy, but like if I'm ever outside and I'm walking around and I like need a like pep injection, it's like 2 minutes of just like, yeah, I'm like gonna get it. And like I always think about the blocks when I'm like it's like it kind of you're just like taking challenges and like slicing them.
Love that.
Super cheesy and weird, but that's my answer.
Whatever works. I listen to 8 Mile by Eminem.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
It's
classic.
it's talking about vomit. It's whatever works
Mom's
best for you. That's yeah, mom's spaghetti. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And now that you've been doing this for you're basically a veteran in the seltzer space.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. If you had to restart this and you were to start again today, what would you change about your process, knowing everything that you know now?
Ooh. I would say I just found out that there's such a thing as grant writers that only charge if they're successful at writing grants. And so whereas I spent a big chunk of my savings on the R&D process the first time around, knowing that there are grant writers who can do the application for you and that the government will do matching up to a certain amount, I would try to get that underway.
Okay.
Because now I'm like, oh, I didn't have to spend thousands of dollars on this. I could have just
Very
maybe,
cool.
yeah, outsourced the thing is like, there's so many things out there that are like female founder funding or like grant, whatever, but it's like a full-time job almost to know when the application process is due and like submit all the paperwork they want and get it in on time and follow up and all that. And I just don't have the time, but
Of course, yeah.
frustrating because you see them kind of sailing by and you're like, oh, that would have been good. Oh, that would have been good. So, but yeah, knowing that that is an option, I would have from the bat tried to get some sweet government funding and then apply it towards some stuff. I mean, I'm not out of the races. Like I can still try to apply it to like my second round of flavors, for example, or
Sweet. Okay.
try to use it to like expand into grocery stores or maybe like go into the US from like a production perspective. So like there's certainly
Right.
a lot more opportunity there, but yeah, I'm a little more aware of the options now than I was before.
Very interesting. I didn't like this is I just learned something new
Yeah.
today. I didn't know about grant writers and like that. They'll only get paid if you get it. That's kind of brilliant. Wow. Just rethinking my life here.
Can I get someone to grant my mortgage?
Yeah. Just commit a little bit of fraud. If the
Always
CR is listening, I'm kidding. This is a joke.
JK, love you.
I love paying taxes. Big
Yeah,
fan.
me too. The best.
It's the best. Support the country. Support the infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Love the infrastructure. Big fan. Big fan. One day the LRT will work, and it will be thanks to all the tax we've paid. So
Yes, you're welcome, everyone.
okay, and if the day-to-day logistics of how seltzers work was not a limitation, what would be a flavor that you would love to build, which could be a combination of anything and everything?
Whoa. I mean, I basically can make whatever flavor I want. It's just a matter of deciding people want it, not just me. That's key challenge I think a
Yeah,
lot
yeah, but that's
of figure out.
that's the more realistic,
Yeah.
practical side. But like if that none of that mattered, what would that flavor be?
I have a lot of ideas for the next ones. I think one that could be really fun is like a blue raspberry flavor, like those like lollipops you used to have when you were little that turn your tongue
Yeah,
blue. And they don't really taste like an actual living fruit, but they're like,
yeah.
yeah, I think that could be like kind of tastes like a slushy, like one of those like frozen slushies you get at 7-Eleven. I think that could be really fun. I just kind of keep wanting to go. I keep wanting to go down the rabbit hole of like nostalgic kind of like fun but nostalgic flavors. So I think that could be like a really nice next one.
But
Yeah, it's entirely possible that that isn't one of the next three that I do. So stay
yeah,
tuned.
especially like if it turns my tongue blue, I'm 100% a
Oh
customer.
well, I'm trying not to add any
No, no,
things.
no, no, no. I'm just since you mentioned it, I was like,
Yeah,
well, that would be cool.
color changing.
And yeah, yeah. And this is since you're a marketer, and this is something every marketer gets asked. Who is your target market for Bloom?
I, at the core, think it's for people who just love fizzy water, who drink multiple cans of it, buy it in cases, like always keep it stocked in their basement or their pantry, like get really excited to try new flavors or brands, like the really core, I call them aficionados. However, I have learned
Nice.
over the past 6 months that there's like this segment of people that are like into soda but know it's not great for them and want to find an alternative because they find 0 calorie, zero sugar seltzers pretty boring or flat. They want something
Mhm.
like a little bit more, but they, like they want that like kind of candy feel, but they don't want the bad side of it. And so
Yeah, yeah.
that's something I've heard from a bunch of people who bought it for themselves, but then their like spouse, who's a soda addict, will be like, "Oh, is this actually something I want to drink?" And then the other thing that I've found, this has happened like 4 or 5 times now, and I have a small sample size, so that seems significant to me, is someone will say, "I hate sparkling water." And I'm like, "Oh, that's too bad because my brand is sparkling water." And
It's a
then, but
very
I'll have like,
intense reaction to a beverage.
yeah, I'm just kind of like, oh, that's unfortunate because I love them so much. But I've started bringing my cans with me to events and networking things. And if someone ever says, I hate this, I'm like, oh, well, can you try? I just like want to see what your reaction then is to this. And everyone who's said they hate sparkling water but has tried mine has said it's like actually the best sparkling water they've had. So
All
maybe
right.
also for people who hate sparkling water.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So like I don't have like lots of
Is
points
is
for this.
that is that a big section of
I
people that
I
hate
don't know.
sparkling water?
I don't know. I should do a poll that's like, do you hate sparkling water? I don't know if anyone will admit that to me, but knowing what I do, but it's
Yeah,
interesting.
maybe that's the communications. If you hate sparkling
For
water,
fizz
you're gonna
haters.
love this. Yeah, I don't think I've ever met someone who's hate. I mean, again, I have not really asked them about their beverage preferences, but in conversation, I don't think. Yeah, like I've heard people say they love sparkling water, but I've never heard anyone or people that are like, whatever. If it's
Yeah.
there, I'll drink it. But I've never heard someone say they hate it. That's a very weird thing to hate. Cool. All right, good to know. And I know we discussed like potentially having a sales intern, but this is independent of that. Like since you currently run it by yourself, if there was one area you could pick where you could have someone come in and sort of help, someone who can work through the summer or just like typically a student who might listen. Because fun fact, I realize decent chunk of my listeners are typically kids in undergrad. So for
No.
whatever reason, they think
Hey, kids.
this is hey kids. For some reason, they think this is fun to listen to. So if you had to pick one area that you would need someone to come in and work on, what would that be?
Okay. I hate saying this because it's so stereotypical, but I'm not great at math as an English major. And the whole unit economics of e commerce is, I think, challenging for probably anyone. Like,
For
even
sure.
someone with normal math skills or like even good ones. Like, it's very nuanced and there's just so many complexities to it normally, let alone when you layer in retail with all these like margins and markups, and
Hmm.
it's a crazy system. So I don't really have a handle today on how much it costs to produce balloon versus how much I'm making off of it.
Yeah.
And it's because you've got all these disparate costs. It's like the one-off R&D cost or the batch number one cost, and then there's like the can cost and the boxes cost. But like the cans are filled, but the boxes haven't been used yet. And then I've got my Shopify subscription, which is monthly, and I've got like my one-off shipping fees. And so like it just kind of is all over the place. And then on
Yeah.
top of that, yeah, so then if I'm going into retail, then it's like, okay, I'm charging them like, let's say $1 to buy a can, but then they're marking it up another dollar, and then the distributor has their cut of it, and then let's say they have an everyday low price match, and then so then it's like, okay, I should know how much it cost me to produce, but then like, am I even going to be making any money if that's the case, and is it even worth?
Right.
And like, if the answer is no, it doesn't mean I shouldn't go into retail, because the theory is if you sell at enough stores, you can have enough demand for your product that you're making it in such
Right.
large quantities that you get a price break, and then
Makes
it makes
sense.
sense. And so the other thing you have to factor in is, where are the price breaks? So it's like, if I'm not profitable doing it at a small scale, fine. But like, let's say a year or two from now, if I'm making, 300x the amount, is that when I start making money? And like, how much
Right.
money do I need to get to the point where I'm making that, and then how much would I need to pay myself? And so this is like so much, like,
Yeah, that's a lot of math.
numbers. Yeah. So I would
Yeah.
want some sort of CPA um undergrad or something.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if any CPAs are going to listen to it, but we'll use this description as one of the, I'm forgetting all my words. We'll use this clip as one of the ways to talk about, hey, looking for a potential intern, undergrad, good with numbers, good with spreadsheets, organized, can work remote, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm
And
assuming that's
nagging
fine.
me for the financials.
Yeah. Okay. Done. All right. That's the recruitment clip right there. We're going to
Perfect.
talk about uh, finance spreadsheets, and I might be able to actually connect you to some students, hopefully.
Yeah, it'd
Um,
be great.
Amazing. All right, that's there we go. We just If the first intern for Balloon. We just figured it out. That's exciting. All right, that is very very cool. Awesome. And I'm going to take one step back. Like, obviously, we learned about grant writers in the last year and a half. If you let's go back to when you were 20 and you decided that, okay, now is when I want to start a company, what would you tell yourself, and what would you do, knowing everything again that you know now, apart from the grant writers? Because that is great. I'm going to be looking this up myself.
So I know everything I know now, but I'm 20.
Yeah.
And is the question, what would I do differently, or what would I tell myself?
Yeah. What would you tell yourself to do? I guess it's sort of ties into each other.
So I definitely think I needed all of the startups I went through the past 20 years to like understand what I'm capable of. I feel like I did not have nearly the confidence in myself that I did back then. I think there's a lot of change I've gone through too, just in moves to different cities and countries, and like having kids is obviously a challenge, and like you learn a lot about what you're capable of by doing that as well. I feel like I had a lot more energy back then, and obviously not having kids in my 20s, I would have had boundless time to just really hustle on this. And so I think it's just like things tend to work out, and you just need to put yourself out there enough for luck to happen. Like, it's a lot of
Yeah.
work, but it's also a lot of timing and a lot of really long range events. Like, there are just things that happen that I'm like, oh, if I hadn't gone to this event 5 years ago and talked to this person who introduced me to this person who then did this wouldn't, it's just kind of such a long game that if you're trying to get something done and you're impatient and you think it's going to happen immediately, it's like, that's not the way to look at this. I feel like 20-year-old me probably wouldn't have been so long-term focused as I am now. So yeah, just like keep chipping away at something, and it'll gain traction and momentum and kind of compound on itself.
Amazing. I love that. Well, Juliana, thank you so much for your time. This was great. I learned a lot about, and like I say this to everyone. Like, for me, this podcast is more about I see people doing cool things. It's an excuse for them to agree to talk to me, and it allows me to sort of pick their brains, learn more about their journey. Grant Writer, game changer. That is very cool. I'm going to be talking about this at every single party I go to, and yeah, I attend very boring parties. We're going to be talking about grant writers. But again, thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you the best. Someone wants to order balloon. What are the ways they can go about doing that?
Yeah.
And how can they follow along on the journey?
You can order it at balloonwater.com. I am obviously going to be taking steps to get it into stores, but it might be a while knowing that everything in e-commerce takes longer than I expect. If you want to follow my LinkedIn stories, you can just do a search for Juliana Casale on LinkedIn. I should pop up if you put the word balloon in there too. And then we are at Water Balloon Co. And by we, I mean me. I am Balloon.
The royal V.
The Royal We is on Instagram at Water Balloon Co. and also Twitter at Water Balloon Co. And then I think also on TikTok, but I've not done anything with TikTok because it terrifies me. So do not expect any content there for a bit.
But I have to say, like, because when I post these podcast snippets on all platforms,
Yeah.
TikTok typically tends to get the most reach.
Oh, don't tell me that. This is another channel I have to look
It's-
into. Darn
It's
it.
yeah, I know. But like, it's honestly like for context, if it was like my view counts aren't that high, but on an Instagram reel, if it's 1,500 views, TikTok is like 4,000.
Wow.
Same copy, same hashtags, same video, nothing
So
changed.
maybe I need a TikTok intern instead of a
So-
finance person.
Maybe we get both. Someone who can work on the spreadsheet and someone who works on the reels.
That'd be amazing.
On the TikTok. Awesome. Thank you so much, Juliana.
Thank you. This is so fun.